Good morning again, everyone. My name is Crystal Dickerson. I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager for the North Carolina Department of Information Technology's Division of Broadband and Digital Equity. Today, we are going to be discussing the GRATE Grant Program and project progress reporting. A few bits of housekeeping. Today, if you have questions, please use the chat feature to enter your questions. We will answer them all at the very end. We may answer them in written format along the way, but we'll make sure that everyone hears them in case no one sees the chat as you're listening to the meeting. And we are recording this webinar, then we will place it on our website, which is ncbroadband.gov. Immediately after, so you will be able to see that. We'll let you know when it's available. And now I'm going to kick it over to Nate Denny, Deputy Secretary for Broadband and Digital Equity.
Thank you, Crystal. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you joining all of us on a busy summer Friday morning. I really want to thank all of you for your ongoing partnership. Our work to connect every North Carolinian isn't possible without the planning, the outreach, the local expertise and relationships that all of you have in your county. You know, when we set out to do this, and I've said this to versions of this audience a few times, when we set out to do this now going on a couple of years ago, we set three real principles that guide all of our work. One is at all times demonstrate excellent stewardship of taxpayer resources. Two is move faster than heck. Three is make sure we do everything we can to make this process, our work, and good outcomes more accessible and easier for counties, because county governments in particular are absolutely critical partners. So I hope you see that in the work, and where you don't, let us know, right? Because that's our definition of success, and if we're not hitting it, we need to know. But thank you all for attending and for communicating with us and working with us. I also want to thank our team here at the division. All of you know Angie Bailey, the director of the Broadband Infrastructure Office, George Collier, Deputy Director, Shannon Gerger, Crystal Dickerson, who kicked us off this morning. And you'll meet shortly, I think for the first time for many of you, Susan Miller, who's an absolutely essential new member of our GRATE Grant team that you'll all be working with very closely. Before I hand it off to Susan, I want to give you just a couple of quick updates. You probably saw that last week we awarded $80 million worth of GRATE grants to connect about 26,000 households and businesses across 33 counties. We're extremely excited about this benchmark because it means that we have now obligated the entirety of the $350 million American Rescue Plan state fiscal recovery funding that was allocated to the GRATE Grant process. Now we've done all told about 126 awards that'll connect 144,000 households and businesses statewide across 93 counties with affordable, reliable, high-speed internet, and that's what we're all here to do in the first place. We now find ourselves with about 25 remaining complete applications in 25 counties that we don't have GRATE Grant funding for. So what we'll be doing over the next week or two is George and Shannon from our team will be reaching out to county managers in those counties. You'll find out who you are, and basically extending to you an opportunity to use funds that have been allocated to this point to the Completing Access to Broadband program. So still state fiscal recovery funds, but as we've said over the past year, we have statutory authority to use those funding sources to address unfunded, unawarded GRATE Grant applications. So, but we need your thumbs up to do so. So we'll be reaching out to each of you to make sure you want us to go down that path. I'm sure that update will create a dozen additional questions. Bear with us a bit because we're working out the details on next steps. there, but we'll be in touch very, very soon about that in your counties. We've also got, and you'll hear from Angie shortly, a good update coming on our maps, and you'll be able to see, I think it is effective today, some of our additional awards represented in our state mapping. So I'll let Angie talk about that more. With that, I look forward to hearing questions from all of you at the end of this, and we'll go ahead and turn it over to Susan.
Good morning, everybody. Crystal, if you could go ahead and advance the slide one. Thank you. Just for reference, as Nate said, I've just recently, within the last 4 months, joined the bio office, and I'm excited to be here. I and my team will be responsible for monitoring and oversight of the federally funded GREAT grant projects. So reporting issues, tracking them, making sure the grantees are in compliance, the projects are moving along as they should, etc. So I welcome your input. I welcome your comments and questions. We'll be working together, hopefully over the next few years, to get these projects taken care of. Okay, so the purpose of the call is to talk about progress reporting, and in particular, the information that's required for reporting to the U.S. Treasury. That report is due in their portal on July 31st. So I know everybody is chomping at the bit to get data and understand what's going to be available. I did want to confirm that we will be providing the grantee progress reports that are due tomorrow to bio, as well as the data, the Treasury data. It's bio's understanding that counties that are using revenue replacement funds for their portion of funding GREAT grant projects will not need all this data, but it will be available to you if you find that it's interesting or useful. The bulk of this conversation may not be relevant to you, but you're welcome to hang on and listen to some of the later discussions on mapping and the Q&As. We do expect to email second quarter 2023 data to you, to the counties, that's necessary for U.S. Treasury reporting by the end of next week, so next Friday, if not sooner. And then, just for future reference, beginning with third quarter data, we are going to be posting it on a dashboard that is currently under development here. So going forward, that information, those reports and data will be available online for you to download at your convenience. You won't have to worry about watching for an email or possibly missing it. So next slide, please, Crystal. Thank you. Just want to reassure you, we're going to be providing you the exact same data that the bio is going to be submitting for U.S. Treasury reporting. And we encourage you to use this data because it's the same projects and hopefully our information will match. But if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. The project data that we're going to be providing is arranged in an Excel document. Actually, it's 2 documents, and they are filterable by counties. Each of the files contains all the projects, the information for all the projects, and you can filter on your specific county so that you don't have to see and sort through all the extraneous data. And we want to make sure that you know that we welcome your input on the format of this data, the content, and how we're distributing it. Just let us know. You can contact us directly, or perhaps Lacey can accumulate it and provide that as a central source for feedback. Both methods would be fine. And lastly, Angie will be talking more about this later, but we will be scheduling another session later on in the year once our dashboard goes live, so that we could show you what's on the dashboard and how to get this data and pull it down. So that's to be scheduled in the future. Just wanted to let you know about that. Next slide, please, Crystal. Thank you. I apologize if I'm going too fast, but now I'm going to go ahead and share the two data files and these are the files that Bio actually uses to provide NC Pro with the data that gets entered into the Treasury portals. And this is the mechanism we're going to be sharing our data with you. So it will have information that North Carolina Broadband Infrastructure Office reports for these projects. And like I said, it has all the projects and you can sort by county. So the first file I want to share has very high level information and it's geared towards reporting expenses. So these expenses that you see here are under the total. It will be what we report for total obligations, to the total amount of money that's been obligated so far. It's not relevant. Well, it is relevant to you, but this is not the number that you will report on your. I'm sorry, somebody is not seeing the demoed information.
Yes, Susan, I was going to say, can you please share your screen?
Oh my goodness. My apologies.
That's okay. Absolutely.
Okay, we're going forward. All right. Thankfully, I didn't talk too much and you didn't miss too much. So again, this is the first file. It contains very high level information and some of it will be helpful for your reporting purposes. But just so you know, the actual expenses and obligation dollar amounts are for the Broadband Infrastructure Office. They're not for your county. You will be inputting your specific county dollars. The tab that has, or there's two tabs that will have relevant information for you in this file. The first is tab number 4, and this contains the subrecipients' names and mailing addresses, and that's required for entering into the portal. So you can pick the appropriate information for your particular partner, broadband partner on that. The tab number 5 is the other one that will be relevant. This has a little more detail about each individual project. And you can see, there are all the projects that we have obligated to date, and that or at least as of June 30th. And then right now it doesn't show the filtering. I have to add that feature to the sheet, but it will be added before we send it out. You can filter on your county again, and you can see the information that is relevant at a high level for each project. So the total in this case, again, though, the sub-award amount, this is the amount that the state is funding. So you would have to input your own amount for your county. I also wanted to mention the sub-award number. This is a state number for the sub-award. You're welcome to use this number to explicitly identify the project for your county, or you may have your own project sub-award numbering arrangement, so you can use either one. And then just a little bit, scrolling over just a little bit more, these are the answers that we provided for a few of the other fields in the U.S. Treasury portal, so that if you would like to, you can make sure that your responses are consistent with the BIO's responses. And the same is true for these last 2 columns here, how we describe the projects. This is again the information that BIO will be reporting. Those are the only fields in this first file that you might be interested in, and chances are this is information you already have. I'd like to go to the second file now. This is the one that we call it the programmatic information. It's more detailed information about each specific project. And again, this is exactly the format of the data that BIO provides to NC Pro that will get input into the Treasury portal. It should be arranged basically in the order that the U.S. Treasury portal asks for it. And I will add this caveat. What I have heard is that U.S. Treasury is continuing to revise the portal, and move things around and change things and add fields. I don't know if we will even know for sure that this is the final version until NC Pro goes in to input the data. So please be patient with us as we try to keep track of what the U.S. Treasury is doing. But we can filter by county. So just to make things easy, I'm going to select Chatham County. Oops. As an example. Right now, there's only one project listed per county because we have just announced the awards for second awards in the county. So some of your counties may actually ultimately show 2 lines when you get this same report for third quarter. But for now, it's one project per county. And all these fields are what we are reporting for U.S. Treasury. They just recently added this column, initiation of construction date. That was not in the portal originally. And we, because we don't have data on exactly when each grantee starts construction, we are assuming that our projected construction date is the date that the agreement was executed, fully executed. So this date would correspond to the date that the grant agreement was signed by all 3 parties. And then the date of initial operations. This is the date that we expect all of the locations to have service available. So in other words, once the project has been fully executed and completed. I'm not going to go through each of these fields, but you can take a look at these. This file will be posted online, so you'll receive it in the mail next week. But most of these are yes/no answers and simple answers until we get over to actual data. So we have planned number of fiber miles. We have the total number of locations that are planned for service. We have it broken out by speed because Treasury requires that we indicate that. We also have the locations broken out by residential and by business. And the last piece of information that I will mention is the starting with the column AQ on this. All the subsequent information is related to projects that have a total cost exceeding $10 million. And there are only 4 projects right now in North Carolina that exceed $10 million. So these questions will not apply for anyone except for the counties involved with those 4 projects. And actually they won't, I don't believe they will apply anyhow, because Charter is the only provider that has projects that fall in this category. And the 4 counties that are associated or that have supported these 4 projects by Charter have used revenue replacement dollars. So we believe it's unlikely that you will need to report. It's our understanding that you will not need to report this additional data here. Bio will need to report it, but because the counties have used revenue replacement, we believe that you won't need to. However, the data will be here if you want to look at it. You will see what Bio has reported to U.S. Treasury. I believe that was everything I wanted to say about these files, and I welcome your questions. I welcome conversation, afterwards. And if we see a lot of questions and concerns once we've distributed the data, we welcome your contact, and we'll see if we can get that straightened out very quickly. With that, I am going to stop sharing. And Crystal, did you cut me off there? I don't see it being shared. Okay, so we'll go to Angie Bailey, and she's going to discuss the location fabric and the mapping locations.
I think we may have one more slide right before this one.
Oh.
No, okay, sorry, never mind. Okay, thank
I
you so
can-
much,
I
Susan.
merged. Yep.
So I'm Angie Bailey. I'm Director of our Broadband Infrastructure Office. We just wanted to thank you all for your time this morning. I know it was a short notice on this. There's a lot we're trying to kind of get coordinated and pushed out and share with you all before the end of the month. I want to really thank Susan Miller. She joined our team a couple months ago. We were extremely lucky to have recruited her. She's been in the telecom industry for a couple decades, and we really appreciate her expertise on monitoring and compliance in particularly. So she'll be heading up our Great Grant program for all these awarded projects. So location data, I think you all, everyone's aware that we do require location specific data for our Great Grant program. That means grantees have to build to specific households and businesses, which are specified in their applications and then in their contracts. And so we do, as you can see on the slide, we have just published an update as of this morning to our Great Grant Awards map. So you can find this on NC1 map. That's nconemap.gov. And if you choose the broadband section, NC1 map is the state GIS resource housed by the Geographic Information Coordinating Council. It's a great resource. So I want to make sure that I explain on this map that we've got some of the projects they're specified as either contracted or contingent. And so when we make for high scoring projects, those become contingent awards, meaning there's still a fair amount of contracting documentation to be provided before they're fully contracted. So we want to make sure we specify in the map which ones are fully executed and which ones are still contingent. And this map does show the awards made, contingent awards made last week. So that's what's in the map that's on the slide. I hope you all will check it out. These locations are downloadable to the public in NC1 map. And so back to reporting, how this affects reporting is that U.S. Treasury does have a new reporting requirement about reporting location data. And they just came out with this in the past month or so. They are wanting location data for all ARPA, SFRF, and capital project fund dollars. So they have a new form that's requesting project locations. So they are wanting ultimately for locations to be reported in the FCC's new, it's called the BSL, which is the Broadband Serviceable Location Fabric. It is kind of a geospatial, it's a set of geospatial data that's kind of a point on each eligible building in the state and across the country. Our Great Grants are mapped against the state's Next Gen 911 addressing data. You all probably, all counties, local governments submit data into our Next Gen 911 database for the state. That's the address data that the Great Grants are mapped against, both in the applications and when we contract, the contract references these specific addresses. So it's not a quick transition to move from having projects mapped in address NC versus the new FCC fabric. And so I think Treasury has recognized that. They said that this is a transition time. We are moving to a world, I think that's their term, where the new fabric will be required. And our team, not just for this reporting, but broadly in all this work, is looking at how to crosswalk. We have an amazing mapping team, how to crosswalk between our address NC data for the state and the new FCC fabric. Because we're going to need this for lots of purposes for all of these programs. There's some licensing restrictions on the FCC fabric that we don't have with address NC. So we think it's important to continue to utilize both. We are also working with emergency management on building footprints for the state and looking at where our buildings are, how can we improve on the FCC fabric. When I say we, I do want to recognize the Center for Geographic Information and Analysis, which is our GIS shop for the state, which sits in DIT, is our mapping partner. Ben Shelton at CGIA is a huge resource for us on broadband mapping, as well as Stephanie Jane Edwards in our office on mapping. So they are working hard on all these questions. So for reporting purposes right now, and Susan can help you with specific questions, but essentially on the reporting form that's requesting location data, it asked if you're going to provide location data, there's a yes or no. We would choose no, we're not providing location data in this reporting period, and then providing an explanation to kind of say that our great projects right now are mapped against our authoritative addressing data set for North Carolina. We're working on that transition. And so we're planning to share that kind of explanation data with you all. So that's kind of what's going on in the mapping space. We're happy to talk with you more about that. And again, Susan will be sharing that kind of narrative with you. We will keep you updated on that work. And as Susan mentioned, our mapping folks are also working hard on a great grant reporting dashboard where you all will be able to, and you all, counties and the public and our grantees will be able to pull up the great grant contracts, the progress reports that we receive each quarter. The map will be available there, the downloadable points, and then these U.S. Treasury reports that we submit either directly to Treasury, and also we submit them through NC Pro, our pandemic recovery office. So those are the things we're working on, and we expect to have that in place for our October reporting. So that's kind of a quick explanation on location data, and thank you all for being here. I'll turn it back to Susan.
Thanks, Angie. Before we get to questions, I did want to, I forgot to mention, as Angie said, the Treasury portal does have a yes or no question on it about whether you're going to upload a data file, and we are planning to answer no. And we're also going to be providing an explanation. That information will be available in the second file that I showed you. I didn't highlight it at the time I was discussing it, but I just wanted to reassure you that that information will be there so that you can use the same explanation if you prefer. And then Angie said something and I forgot it. So we'll go ahead and move on to questions. Crystal, if you could moderate, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. I wanted to make sure first and foremost that everyone saw the new mapping link that George Collier added into the chat. It's for nc1map.gov, and that would get you to that map solution that Angie showed earlier today. Then we do have a question that came in that said, will there be other county awards made? So Nate, Susan, is there someone here who might be able to answer that? George?
I'll let George or Angie answer.
Perfect.
Yes, so right now we've allocated essentially the $350 million in our great grant pot. And so what we're looking at now is our unfunded, so our completing access to broadband legislation has an option where a county could choose to fund an unfunded great grant from CAB funds as a instead of it says a kind of a full CAB project. And so what we're looking at right now is what are the remaining unfunded great grants, which counties have not received a second award that have an eligible application pending. And so that's what Nate was kind of describing. We'll be reaching out to each county that has a relevant, an application that fits in that pot to see what you all want to do. And then essentially that's kind of our transition into our CAB funds.
Perfect. Okay, we have a follow-up question about who will have access and receive this data within each county.
I'll address that real quickly. We intend to use the county contact that is specified in the grant agreement. However, if you would like to provide an additional contact or an alternate contact, you're welcome to send that to us. Alternatively, perhaps that could be assembled at NCACC and then forwarded to us in a more comprehensive list. But if you'd like to check your grant application and find the contact information there, that's the person that we intend to send it to at the moment. But please notify us if somebody else needs it.
Thank you. So those are all the questions we have in the chat. We will hold for a moment and see if there are any additional questions that come in. While we're doing that, I want to make sure that we show the contact information for Susan Miller and George Collier within the Broadband Infrastructure Office, so that if you have any questions regarding anything that we've walked through today or anything else related to the Great Grant Progress Reporting, you can reach out to them directly. And as always, you can reach us at any time on our website at ncbroadband.gov. Seeing no additional questions coming in, I think we shall conclude today, but I wanted to thank everyone here for all of your questions, for your support, for everything that you're doing to help close the digital divide, for your partnership. And oh, there we go. Emily Sisk asked, can you please repeat who will get notified within the county?
Yes, the data is going to be sent to whoever is in the county is on record as being the contact in the grant agreement. If the person that really needs the information is someone different than that, if you could let us know so that we can ensure that it goes to the right person. Angie or George, or Crystal, if I've misstated, please let me know.
I think that sounds good. We do have one more question that came in that said, can you clarify the grantee report that is due tomorrow?
Absolutely. Yeah. Each grantee is required to provide at this moment, a quarterly status report on their project. And it includes not only information that we need to report to U.S. Treasury, but also some additional detail that gets into exactly where they are in their project and any issues they might be having with their project. It's something that will be provided to you. I think your grant agreements say that we have to provide this quarterly progress report to you 10 days after we receive it. This time around, again, we will be emailing it to you. But going forward, long term, it will also be posted on that dashboard. So you will have both a quarterly project report from the grantee or grantees in your county, as well as those data files that we talked about a little bit earlier that are used for reporting to the U.S. Treasury.
Susan, this is George. I'd like to just add as a point of clarification to all of our counties that are on the call. For any county that entered into a three-party agreement with the grantee and NCDIT, you should have received a copy of that grant agreement after our deputy secretary signed it, along with an email with the proposed locations to be served in that project, because I believe the grant agreements indicated that we would be sending those files under separate cover or in a separate email. Also, you can find all of the required reporting dates in that grant agreement in one of the exhibits. So it is for just to repeat, any of the counties that entered into a three-party agreement with the state and the grantee, all that information is in the grant agreements for you all to reference. But you can always give us a call here at the office or email myself or Susan, preferably Susan, because she's going to be your direct point of contact for the projects and her team once she has her 3 grants managers on board, to round out our grants management team in the office.
Thank you, George, for adding that clarification. We've had a couple more questions come in. Susan, can you confirm what will be sent out by July 21st? One more time, please.
Yeah, I can. We will send out one email that has the 2 files we reviewed earlier that include the information that needs to be reported to U.S. Treasury. And then we will send a second email to each county that has is part of a third-party agreement that funded these projects with the progress report or progress reports that are associated with your county's projects. So there will be 2 emails that will be provided by on or before July 21st to you that come from either me or the Great Grant email. So just be on the lookout for those two files. If you don't see them, let us know so that we can make sure that you get a copy.
Wonderful. And we have one more question. Well, actually, let me stay on this topic and say that nothing is due tomorrow, correct?
Correct. The only people that have to give us stuff tomorrow are the grantees. The counties will need to use this information to report to U.S. Treasury by the 31st of July.
Perfect. Okay. One more question. When the internet service providers send payment requests to the North Carolina Department of Information Technology, who at the county receives the payment request to process? Is this also the contact person in a grant agreement? I will let George answer that one.
So every county that entered into a three-party agreement with NCDIT and the grantee, there should be an exhibit specifying the amount that would be contributed to the project, by the county, and the payment procedure or process. So, Emily, it's really not a general. I don't think I could answer that specific, in a specific way, and that would, that could be good for the whole group, right? I think we would have to look back at the grant agreements and specifically what it states in the Exhibit J regarding the county contribution.
Perfect. Thank you, George. I know that if we have any follow-up questions that are not answered here today, that you can certainly reach out to Susan. Her email address is shown at susan.miller@nc.gov. Emily has a follow-up question that says Exhibit J says NCDIT will send a copy of that payment request to the county.
Yes, ma'am. Then I would say that who is it going to be sent to will be sent to the contact person identified in the grant agreement, unless you all identify additional people that we need to copy when we send that correspondence.
Perfect. Thank you, George. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everyone who's answered questions and asked questions. We don't have any additional questions at this time. If you do have questions following the meeting, please feel free to send them to susan.miller@nc.gov. We will add these slides as well as the webinar recording itself to the ncbroadband.gov page, or website rather. And we appreciate all of your time and your partnership today. So thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank y'all. Have a great weekend.